You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Hey, Mike's back. Yeah, Mike's back. Mike, how do?
Welcome, Mike.
Hey there. Hey, first thing I want to say is when you get a union worker, you're going to get quality work.
You're right
That's
about
right.
that.
Because they are all trained to the same standard.
Yep.
You turn this thing down. They're all trained to the same standard. Therefore, you're going to get that quality work where you won't be able to get that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had an incident that did happen to me. Well, not to me personally, but to one of my guys that worked around me. He had injured his back on the job. And when he made the claim to management about his back injury, they came back and they said they controverted his injury. So I decided to take it up with his management. And at that time, his insurance paid 90% of his medical bill. So he was in good condition on that. But anyway, I took it to his management and I asked the question. I said, do you understand the word controvert? And they looked at me kind of perplexed. And I said, well, did you talk to his doctor or any of the medical people? Did you talk to any of the people that were around him when he got hurt? And they said, no. I said, well, the word controvert means you disagree with evidence. So what is your evidence? Well, they didn't have it. I said, you're keeping this outstanding electrician from doing work for a lousy 10%. And he said, what do you mean 10%? I said, well, he's got 90% coverage on his medical. So we're only talking about 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? They turned around and they put that man, told him to go to the doctor, have his search procedure done, and he returned to work in a month.
Yeah. So wait a second, Mike, wait a second. So you're telling me that this company didn't treat this worker fairly before the union got involved?
Yeah.
No, they were doing, I guess, what the management does. You
Right.
know, they don't want to have any more expenses, which is understandable. But when they came back and said that they were controverting his injury, that means you're controverting. That means you're disagreeing with his injury based on evidence.
Yeah.
And they had no evidence.
Yeah.
And I said, also on top of that, I said he has 90% medical coverage, but because he made a injury claim, you're denying him to be able to use his medical insurance for a lousy 10%.
Yeah. Yep.
And they changed their mind.
It's always the same
Well,
thing.
the idea is that you put what's really going on in front of him is that, hey, he's already paying for his medical. Why don't you let him have this procedure done? And they said, well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it changed things around. So I wasn't a union representative. I was a foreman, and I was just trying to help out this employee, and he was an outstanding electrician.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think he deserved better, and I think he deserved another viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when they saw that viewpoint, they said, well, wait a minute, we might ought to change our attitude and how we address these situations.
Right.
And that's what they did.
And
So-
that's you know that you mentioned about like the quality of service, that's so incredibly important. Thanks for the call, Mike. We really appreciate you calling in. But you mentioned that, you know, when you get a union electrician like you were talking about, the quality of service is just going to be so much better because they are trained to a higher standard. They have years.
Program.
They have years of this apprenticeship program, following folks on the job, taking classes, reading books that other contractors just don't put their workers through. And
you talked about it last week. You know, they're not just they're a better quality service. They're also a much safer service. For
much
themselves.
safer.
You know,
Which is good for the company
it's good
too.
for
It's
everybody.
good. It's obviously, it's just intuitively good for a worker to be in a safer working environment. But it's good for the company too because they have less workplace injuries. They have less liability. Their insurance is lower. It's so much. It's good for everybody. I mean, these things that unions do, they're just so important and so underrated. And that's why we're doing this. We want to be the voice of labor here in North Alabama and talk about the good things that unions have done and will continue to do in North Alabama and in the country. I mean, it's
and they both go hand in hand. You know, training and safety. The reason that you're more safe is because you're higher trained. You're more skilled. You know what not to do. Because I'm an electrician at work, and you know, I've been around some of the contractors that's been brought in that are non-union, and they don't even put locks on equipment at times.
Right.
You know, and it's like, are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Serious? I mean that goes to speak towards the training helps with the safety aspect of it. And it's good for business too, because a higher trained people is going to get a more quality job and a quicker job. You're going to be able to finish your job quicker and move on to the next one, as opposed to.
Yeah, I mean, so often, you know, like if you cut corners, you're going to end up having to go back and do it over, and it's going to take longer, cost more money than if you had just done it right the first time, which is what union contractors are going to do. Folks, you've been listening to the Valley Labor Report with Jacob Morrison and David Story. We've got a really exciting interview for you next week, so we will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your time. If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week and get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip segments throughout the week. And we also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So you can see if we're on your listening platform of choice. You can go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. And if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, then consider throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report.